Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Points back, 4 races to go. How do you maximize points versus going for wins, which could be a tiebreaker important at the end of the year?
Well, if you get to that scenario, you've run it pretty tight. But no, I think for us, we're kind of in that zone where you can kind of just race for wins, which is nice. But we have been in this situation several times before, and it it's either worked out or it hasn't. But I think our season, considering if we just had, I didn't make the mistake in Detroit, have a crash in Texas, and then getting taken out again in Road America, I think we'd be right by the lead there. So it's definitely, I don't know. Honestly, you try and do the same thing every weekend and then just go and win a race. You don't really change it up. I think verbally you try to say that it doesn't matter as much to race for points, but I've been in Joseph's situation before. It can be pretty stressful, but they're a big team, strong team, and has great teammates. I think all four of us probably have a fairly decent shot. Obviously, the guys with the points or the more points at the moment have a better shot.
Is it liberating just going after the wins instead of just going for points?
Again, I think you do anyway. It's kind of just what you say you do, but I think you probably decisions are a little more free as far as you do when you do get to the latter part of the season, start thinking about what you actually need to do opposed to just going out there and racing for wins. So I guess that mindset does change slightly, but for us, it's a fun way to race, but whether it really changes anything, I'm not too sure.
What do you learn from the new Aeroscreen, from your experience with the new Aeroscreen testing, and then what do you expect next month in Indianapolis?
It's always hard, I think when you do the stuff on simulation, and then the new Aeroscreen has changed significantly from the first one, both with the frame and then also with the material they're using for the glass. I think there's still areas that, or conditions, maybe like Detroit race 1 this year where it was going from wet to dry, and especially there because of the back straight had been ground, that there was a white kind of milky that definitely burned through a lot of people's tear-offs. So situations like that will be interesting to see what we're going to do for next season, or if maybe small wickers at the front can determine where a lot of that stuff goes or what. So I think they have implemented some decisions down the road that may affect the outcome of whether you run the glass or not.
I want to ask you a question about Sebastian Bourdais. Over 200 career starts. What is it about him that has had that kind of longevity, and what's made him such a good driver on the circuit?
Well, talent. We all know he's a huge talent, and I think in many different disciplines too. I've had the pleasure to be teammates with him in the GT program, and to see what he can actually do is pretty impressive. I wish at some point we could team up on an IndyCar team too, because you see what he's able to achieve there. But I think it's he's pretty relentless, man. I think that's what, especially over a life cycle for drivers. Most of the time you see that fade out, but he's very passionate. Some people might think he's a little moany occasionally, but honestly, he it's just because it drives him nuts. I think the pursuit of perfection, and he's one of definitely the greats that I've been lucky to race, and the whole field as well.
You had a 4th place and a 6th place finish in Laguna, just a couple years ago. Is there anything from those kart days that you can take to Laguna this year in the IR18?
No. I don't remember the last time I raced there. 2002, I think.
2000.
So
2002.
Yeah, almost 20 years ago. And a very different car, but it's kind of strange, the going back there. You have these memories from when you drove last. I think it was actually one of my first or second tests actually in a kart car too, was actually there with Pac West. And I thought how much grip there was, and then yet we go back this year and it feels like an ice rink. It feels really low grip, and the car moves around a lot, which I guess they're going to resurface for next year as well in the off season. So it's nothing really crosses over. The cars are so different, whether it's the engines, the tires, the aerodynamics. none of that really, carries over at all.
Sir, I just need one word.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'm sure you've had this question asked this year, but in terms of just like a NASCAR, IndyCar, just like doubleheader, what's your stance on that, and what would it take to make that happen? What course configuration, track would you think would suit that the best?
Yeah, I guess most of it lies probably with NASCAR. I think from at least talking to Jay and most other people, I think they're happy to entertain the idea. Logistically, it's probably easier for us. We don't have almost 40 races a year. I don't know. I think even some IMSA doubleheaders, are definitely paramount. I'd love to go back to Watkins Glen even for the 6 hour, and even if IndyCar had to race on the Saturday. I think it would be very strong for that demographic and for that area. Then you also have the TV alliance too with NBC. Cuts costs in those situations too. So I don't know. We could even do the Roval at Charlotte. Like why not? So there's lots of circuits, even if they did it at Indianapolis, the road course, which, that would probably be least desirable from an IndyCar standpoint. But there's lots of, courses that we go to, but namely Watkins Glen, where they already run, Sonoma again. I don't know. Yeah. There's lots of options.
Would you be for it? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be really cool. I think it'd be definitely a milestone for the sport in general, but I think also a positive, in the fact of efforts to try and gain back popularity and create some crossover. I think would be helpful for both series.
And offbeat question here, but obviously Kyle Larson races dirt sprint cars, and saw Chip Ganassi go out to a race last month. Do you ever have a thought on possibly giving that a try, taking Kyle up on that?
No, I probably see it the same as when I watched Ryan Dungey race motocross, and he said, well, how about you jump on and have a go? And I said, well, now's probably not a very good time for me to start learning. So it's, I go to a lot of dirt races. It's very popular in New Zealand, and I've been going since I was, probably the age of 4 or 5. My parents owned a dirt track in Australia at one point, so it's been a big part of my racing growing up and watching. But I think I've only driven a sprint car maybe several years ago in Putnamville or somewhere in Indiana.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
2 more questions here from me. You've had a rookie teammate this year in Felix Rosenqvist. That's not really a rookie. He's won at every level. What's it been like, racing with Felix all year, and have you been able to learn things from Felix with all his experience?
Yeah, I've been able to learn a ton. I think that's some people fall into this, rookie situation, which, he obviously is, but, he's raced in many more different categories than I even have. So it's been a breath of fresh air, and a guy that has confidence and is happy to suggest things and even question, why we do some things the way we do. So that has actually helped us as a team in a lot of ways. But for me, it's just really been refreshing. So, I think any teammate always brings a value. It's just, he's been able to do it in other ways opposed to, the normal rookies that you get through that are just young and kind of moving up.
So lastly, thanks for some time today. Your thoughts on the hybrid engine announcement, kind of where you see it going off, and are you excited by it? It's an interesting time, I think, in motor racing. I think a lot of that determines relativity, and manufacturers need relativity. Fast and loud, I don't think really cuts it these days. So I can see the move, whether it's on the powertrain side or whether it's actually, utilizing other parts of the car or technical things. So it's you got to be relevant, man. And honestly, I think it's a smart move from them. I think it will entice definitely other manufacturers coming in. And the timeline, I think, suits, where you've had a lot of other categories pursuing it already. I guess the hard thing is trying to find what's the mainstream fix, and really what they've produced so far is not it. So, we'll see. Thanks a lot.